It is 7 p.m. I hereby call this meeting of the Londonderry Heritage Commission to order this 27th day of March 2025. First point of business is we will appoint David Ellis to vote in place of Kristen Endyke as she is not present. Next order of business is approval of minutes from our prior meeting. I was not at the prior meeting, so I'll abstain.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that we approve the minutes of January 23rd, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
Abstain.
Minutes are approved. Yes, sir.
Ted and abstain.
All right, we'll move on to our design review applications. First application is for design review of a site plan for 20,000 square foot building and 60,000 square foot manufacturing building along with associated site improvements. 5 Kitty Hawk Landing, zoned industrial, and the Village on Technology Hill planned unit development. Londonderry Holdings LLC, owner and applicant.
All right, good evening, folks. First, forgive me if my voice falters. I know my partner here is going to help me out. I'm just getting over the flu. But my name is Nick Golan. I'm a licensed engineer and principal with TF Moran. And we're here this evening on behalf of the Village on Technology Hill. The next elements of the project that we have the opportunity to review are our first manufacturing offerings. This is the on-point and building, which consists of approximately 20,000 square feet, as well as a light manufacturing building of approximately 60,000 square feet. To get ourselves situated relative to the aerial that we have before us, Akira Way is located to the upper left, so we come in off of Insight Way. The retail building would be plan left, the childcare plan right. As we work our way down and into the overall village development, we first cross at that T, our leasing building. There's also a patio area, and then directly adjacent to that, just as a reminder, that's where our top park is, where the children's park is. The larger buildings in the circular pattern are residential offerings. There's 439 units spread across those buildings. But if we jog to plan right and start to work our way to the southeast quadrant, is where we're going to speak to the buildings that we have this evening. The on-point building is located essentially the most southerly building that's associated with this project, which does show the solar panels on top of it with a parking area directly to its north. Just to the northeast of that is our 60,000 square foot light manufacturing building with its associated parking, as well as the loading dock that's located in the rear. There's obviously some certain items that we can talk to relative to the overall site development. Project requires an alteration of terrain permit, which is in process. We'll have our site plan review as well. Excuse me. When we look at it in the context of our overall planned unit development, it strikes a lot of similarities. As you know, there's a certain look, there's a certain feel that Ken and Grace Zielinski and the project team are really trying to accomplish with this. So you see those elements throughout each component, whether it's in the retail and the childcare, how it then morphs into our residential offerings. And what Tony's going to do this evening is to show how it then morphs again. Very similar, but then also has just some slight differentials, so we can see how our retail area differs from residential, how residential differs from our manufacturing elements. Beyond just the aesthetics of the buildings, you're also going to see that in our landscaping. One of the things we took a lot of pride in, although the southerly entrance here is more of the truck route, we've recreated a very similar landscape presence from that southerly entrance that mirrors off of Akira Way. Street trees consisting of the Princeton American elm, that really striking image as you come into the site. So whether you're entering from the south or entering from the north, you hopefully have the same visual experience as you enter into the overall property. I'm going to leave it a little short just because my voice is going to be a little short tonight, and I'll try and save it for questions and give Tony the opportunity to speak to what we're really about tonight, and that's these beautiful buildings.
Absolutely.
Just let me know if you want me
Yeah,
to show.
will do. Thank you. And I am Tony Nizaka from Stone River Architects. Good to see you all again. I think I've presented to most of you before. I'm just going to sort of reiterate a little bit what Nick talked about, just more of an architectural sense. Just a little bit of an overview where we were, what's been approved, and now where we're going in the sort of the commercial aspect of these. I'll start with the name of the village on Technology Hill. The design idea behind the village is to bring some contemporary nature and a village into Londonderry while maintaining sort of the charm of the village, the charm of Londonderry within these buildings. And I think we were pretty successful in those buildings, the retail building, the childcare, the housing, the leasing office that have all been approved. And what we did in those buildings is we always had a sort of a contemporary element, a contemporary accent piece to those, knowing that we're going to have this commercial part of the village that will be a little bit more contemporary, which is just a little more architectural for those types of buildings. So if we can actually open up the On Point building. And if you don't mind just zooming out a tad just so we can see the whole thing, that'd be great. So this building, at first glance, you will be able to tell it is a manufacturing building. It's a little more formal in shape and form and materials. But what we did is we took the accents that we used from the residential building and brought those more to the forefront for the commercial buildings. As you see, this sort of rain screen panelized cladding material. Actually, I'll start with the base. To tie everything together, basically we use the same stone base that we're using. And is it okay if I?
Yes, please.
I didn't touch anything, I promise.
This is the same stone base we're using in every single building on the project.
So that's all stone?
This is manufactured stone.
Oh, okay.
So it's a more cost-effective way to achieve a similar
Simulated stone.
simulated stone. Like every building in Technology Hill, every building gets that stone application. That's how we're sort of using one of those elements to tie everything together. As you see in this building, that is the stone base. Architecturally, there's not a lot better you can do to sort of ground a building and give it that sort of classic appearance than a stone base, and that's how we felt we can tie all these buildings together. The next portion, as you'll see, as you look at this building, you'll notice what the entrance is. For a manufacturing building, that's important for workers, for clients, for visitors to know where your entrance is. A lot of these manufacturing buildings in the area are big boxes that don't really have a lot of character, and we want that to be sort of seen in this building and all the buildings. The storefront we're using there at the entry, I'm hoping everybody knows where the entry is. I assumed everybody knew it. It's the larger glass expanse on the left, bottom left there. What we're doing around that entry is similar to what we did to accent the residential, the retail, the childcare, the leasing office is, I'll take this too, is this panelized reveal system. Again, this is the same material that was approved. I don't know if I want to banner white it across the front, but I think everybody can kind of see it from there. The same material we use in all the other buildings. The colors that were sort of, this is just the sample, so we use this same color as the main color in the residential buildings. This is, this field color here is specific to this building.
And that's the almond on the our left?
This is the almond, yeah.
Thank you.
I will say, as far as the reveals and the colors go, the colors are probably going to be roughly there. It's really hard to render a perspective like this and be spot on of what it is. As far as the reveals, I'm not going to say this is the final look, but it's not going to, if we update the reveals in this and do another rendering, I don't think you all will really have too much qualms with, oh, this is, a foot off. It doesn't really, so it is 99% there as far as that. There's just more, shop drawings, detailed review we need to, as we get into the construction drawings. One element we do as we go to this more commercialized sector of the site, how we kind of keep that sort of warmth for that you kind of see in the village green and the residential and the childcare is we always want to have like a natural accent in all these buildings, which you can kind of get a glimmer of in the entry ceiling there. Similarly, this is the same wood material we're using at all the decks at the residential. The similar application to the leasing office, the childcare, where it has a similar roof line, where we have this wood. And this is just a composite wood material. It looks like wood, but it lasts forever. And as we go up the building, just to speak to the work environment, you'll see that we have large ribbon windows across the top. Excuse me. That's just for natural light. There's a ton of great views up there. This is kind of a high part of the site and in Londonderry. It's always nice for workers, for morale to have natural light, good views. And then that last top band is parapet, serves two purposes. Ties back into the residential buildings. We do a same application there, and it hides the solar panels on the roof. And that is the on-point building. Questions on that, or should we move to the next building? Is very similar but different. So
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the two designs are pretty alike.
Yeah.
So
And
unless you have
probably be remiss if we didn't mention,
no,
I don't know if Tony was trying to be cute, but he mentioned spot on. Spot on is actually one of the elements that's actually manufactured in this building, which is a GPS based monitoring system. Provides you the opportunity to take your animal wherever you go and be able to set up an invisible dog fence. So I'm going to give him the credit that he did do that.
it was sliding that in there. I'm glad somebody picked up on it. So.
it's a like a proximity fence, basically. Like you have. Yeah.
And it's on your phone, so you can GPS a fence around.
Interesting.
Taking it to a friend's house, going
Yep.
camping, a very cool system.
So you can actually determine your own border. It's not just like a so many feet away from
Correct.
a device or anything. Okay.
And there it is. Got it.
All right.
SpotOnColor.com. And I will say, just going back to the on point, one thing I didn't touch on, and then from a civil site perspective, just closer to the building, if you don't mind, just going back.
Sorry, the other one?
Back there. The overlap of the civil and the architectural is really important in this village in a number of ways that Nick went over. But then once we get into the sort of that 100-foot view, 50-foot view of these buildings, you don't really see it on here, but in the back, we have a small sitting area. That's where you come up Kitty Hawk. That'll be landscaped. You'll see the second drawing down. While it is the back of the building, we try not to treat the buildings like a back of the building. There's still all those windows. We have that nice metal panel. We didn't really skimp on looks or design there. Where there's no windows, that's your mechanical space, different, things like that, bathrooms. But then that will be in the forefront of that. That's where we'll have sitting area for, nice day, picnic tables, things like that. So while you're seeing the back of the building as you come up Kitty Hawk, even though, as Nick mentioned, it is the truck access route, we like to think that the design is still treating it as a nice facade. Now we'll take the second one. And as you mentioned, Mr. Kennedy, is the 60 building is very similar to On Point. It's larger, but we don't want it to look exactly the same. We broke up the facade, the ribbon windows for smaller expanses. Again, I think you can look at this building and see where the main entry is. It's not at the corner. It's sort of centralized. We do a similar wood accent around that atrium space. We do the same. It's essentially these same materials. The corner panelized system, the color might just be a little different to give it some variation. But all in all, it's a similar building, but we tried to make them look different. We don't want just a sea of the same buildings in these manufacturing areas. And I apologize if I said Mr. Kennedy.
No worries.
And as you guys are taking a look at this, one of the things to also ponder is just elevationally, there's a little bit of a height change between these two buildings. We wanted to make sure that it provided a similar layered approach to what you see throughout the development. So that way it is kind of, as you drive up and into the development from the south, it is a stepped foundation from one building to the next.
Yeah, I think the spec 60 building is on a little bit of a higher elevation. Is that
Yep.
correct? Yeah.
If we can jump back to the aerial real quick. And Nick can speak to this better than I can because he probably knows the site by heart by now, the topo. But from the lower southeast quadrant up to the up north, the site just goes up.
Yeah.
The larger
Slopes-
buildings, the
slopes
larger
upward
building.
towards the larger building.
Correct. Yep. And then speaking to those two last buildings, again, the mindset is to be using very similar materials. The design's going to be different, but we want to have a cohesive palette, cohesive aesthetic in all these buildings, which you'll see later.
I think what I recall from the master plan, there was that theme, when you come in when we're discussing the master plan.
Yep.
for us.
Yep.
Yeah, the planned unit development, the PUD articles that were written that really govern this facility, we tried to stick to. And I think the architecture is exemplified by that as well as just the overall layout of the project.
All right. Any questions or comments from board members?
Could you kind of touch on the landscaping? What you,
We can probably do that right from this drawing. So what we've tried to provide here is a combination of elements in keeping with what the PUD requires. That being street trees. So again, the Princeton elms, which really line that area. So as those grow in, they grow that interlocking weave to really provide that interesting entrance experience. Additional perimeter plantings as well, consisting of red oak, bloodgood London plane tree. Additional screening plantings as well, white spruce, red cedar, balsam fir. So again, providing a variety of different types of plantings, not just different plantings, but different textures, different heights, some that fruit, some that do not. So again, it provides varying ecology to the area too, which was one of the things that we had outlined with the Conservation Commission as being something that we felt was important. Additional shrubs as well, sea green juniper, dwarf honeysuckle, and common lilac, which is a favorite here in Londonderry. It was something that I was always included. I see some nodding heads.
the state flower.
But again, different types of plantings, different types of textures, and it also provides that variation of different colors throughout the season, which is consistent throughout the development as a whole.
There is also a landscape plan on page 12.
Yes. There's somebody I ran into it once, so.
Oh, they have a page 12.
So at the beginning.
And I think what's important to that too, that Nick didn't quite mention, was that's a lot of times you see that notion of all this great landscaping just in the living areas. I think this, correct me if I'm wrong, spreads into the commercial areas.
So I'm looking at the landscape plan and it's specific to these two buildings and there's quite a lot in there.
And it's quite a few plantings.
Yeah.
For an industrial space. And that, again, that just reaches back to this is a village. And although there are industrial components, the PUD had planned to bring these elements together as harmoniously as possible. That industrial and residential and retail, commercial, that these uses can all be used harmoniously if done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And landscaping is a nice way to tie it together.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Also lightens up the feel of a big industrial building a little bit.
Of course.
The combination of that and the elevational change and that to the best of our ability, we're trying to balance cuts and fills on the site. We're building up a plateau in the area of the on-point building to site that building for a couple of reasons. One, yes, provide some great views, but two, we've got a lot of material on site we need to use. So in areas where we had substantial cuts for the center green, we need to be able to use that displaced material elsewhere, and we've been creative to do so in siting it in this location.
Noticed around the top of each building, there's what looks like corrugated metal or something like that. Is that basically a screen for the mechanicals on top of the building?
Yes, sir. It's, as I said, yeah, as I mentioned, it's a design element to tie buildings together, but also to do exactly that.
Screen mechanicals, yeah.
And as well screen the solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think other than being up at the large building, there's not really a lot of elevations where you're gonna see
Correct.
the tops of these buildings.
I know we're not talking about the residential, but we combined all the mechanicals. There's a mechanical half wall, that spine down the middle. Did that intentionally to limit those views from ground level. Similarly, we'll do any rooftop units at the larger buildings, sort of centralize those. The solar panels themselves are fairly low profile, and we want to model that accurately, that you don't see the tops of them kind of poking out.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, what kind of signage is planned for these buildings?
Go for it.
So signage is going to be done by a turnkey vendor in the future. So that would come back before you for your review.
Each building have its own like monument type sign?
Monument signs are identified on the site plans for each location at the entranceways. That is correct. So we've given you their locations, but what it will show exactly is to be determined in the future. Something to be surprised.
Got it.
Same question on lighting. I don't see lighting packs or anything on the outside of these buildings.
So there should be a sheet L1 located within your site plan set that locates the LED light fixtures that are being proposed. There are both pole-mounted fixtures as well as wall-mounted fixtures that are associated with this. It is sheet L01, which is to the very back of the plan set.
Yeah, it's 2 pages
Right-
after the
right
landscape
before the
plan.
details.
So if you go to page 12 and then scroll down 2 more.
And these are specialty fixtures that are specific to this project. That provides a nice little blend of the historic kind of need, but also something a little bit more tech-friendly, we'll
A
say.
little technological, yeah.
Yeah. Something that we were proud of. But the locations are shown for both the wall packs. So on the 60,000 square foot building, you have wall packs along the back and the front. For the on-point building, there's a wall pack directly at the front entrance. Otherwise, we are basing our site light needs on pole-mounted fixtures.
What
There it
sheet
is.
did you say? Oh,
That
this one.
is the one. You found it.
L01, yep, you got it.
So we can see what those pole-mounted fixtures look like to our right, with the more disc-type feature, which is our wall mount. And the light pole is probably not as attractive, but it's a light pole.
So are these operations, considering this is a village now with residential pretty close, are these 24/7 operations? Are they daytime operations? Or?
Daytime operations.
And how about, beyond our purview, but frequency of trucking deliveries and that kind of stuff coming in? Any feel for that?
I don't know if I can really speak to that.
I can speak to it in generalities, although yes, it's certainly more of a site plan related item, but we'll consider it a coming attraction.
We can make an exception.
Present company except, of course.
It's just for informational use only.
The reality is these uses do not see a heavy traffic volume. So that was something that was expounded upon as part of the infrastructure package, the PUD development.
Yeah.
But they do get large-sized trucks, and when they do have those, we need to make sure we can accommodate those turning movements. It was actually one of the program changes that we made to the parking lot. You can see that there is a drive aisle to the far left of the on-point parking lot That is strictly a truck aisle. It provides the opportunity for something as large as a WB62 to enter into the site, straighten out, and then back into the recessed dock before then exiting. Provides the benefit of keeping that truck traffic separate from your vehicular traffic. Again, they don't need those deliveries often, but when they do need them, we've accommodated them.
I'm impressed with the lighting. You won't really even be able to tell that this place is really here with how this lighting is set up.
I have to give our lighting consultant a lot of credit. We give the general direction of what we're trying to accomplish, and they really hit a home run with us, so we're very appreciative of their efforts.
Have you got timing on construction on these two buildings?
Off the top of my head, I do not. Site work has begun. Foundations for the retail building are in. On point, I want to say foundations were starting fall, maybe, but don't quote me on that.
The idea in general is this is a continuously staged construction project. As we complete one area, we move to the next. The expectation that we would have is that as an approval is garnered for this area, provides us the opportunity to use it as site laydown. And for such a large site, that is one of the things that is at a premium, is the area to lay down that equipment, to lay down the materials that are necessary in order to build the site. We made a very conscious effort to leave as much trees as possible, although it's a 110-acre development. I believe it's in the order of magnitude 70 acres is being left, and it's existing in natural condition. That put a lot of strain on our site contractor for finding ways to develop the project site, but staying within the envelope of what we're actually developing. So when they are ready to move forward with this, I think the expectation would be clearing, rough grading, so it can be utilized for a laydown initially, and then have the opportunity to move forward with the construction of the buildings thereafter.
Is the truck traffic planned to come from Akira Way?
The expectation is it would come from the south. So really,
It's from Kitty
Lane.
Hawk, sorry.
Yep.
That's what I meant. Okay,
Um,
so it would actually never even pass through any of the residential area at
That
all?
is the intent. And we've also designed the drive aisle that passes in front of the 60,000 square foot building as an oversized drive aisle, such that they would also have the opportunity to use that drive lane, which would eventually interconnect into the Envision building, such that they would have the opportunity to never have to drive through the residential area. So we try to provide a few different opportunities. We all miss a turn now and again, so if they miss the turn, there's obviously opportunity thereafter, or if a truck does come in from Akira Way for some reason, they have the appropriate mobility with truck movements to gain access to the site. But we thought this was another benefit to the overall project at the expense of just a small amount of additional pavement.
Good consideration. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We will pass our recommendations on to the planning board. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
All right.
As
Good to see you
presented.
again.
Don't have any add-on, though, do we? No.
It's an industrial building.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty straightforward, and it looks good, so.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for bringing the materials in.
Of course.
The touchy-feely part's always interesting, you know, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next design review application is for a site plan and conditional use permit for 250 single-family cottage court style dwellings along with associated site improvements. 36 Pillsbury Road, zoned to agricultural residential, and Woodmont Commons planned unit development. Procopio Companies, applicant, and Pillsbury Realty Development LLC owner.
Made him right up here. I'll stand up. Okay. Good afternoon, board. Here in regards to the 36 Pillsbury Road project, my name is Will Nuccio. I'm a development project manager for the Procopio Companies. With me tonight is Eric Bednarek, who is our landscape architect from VHB. Keith Case from UTIL, who's our project architect, and then our attorney, Laura Gandia, along with Kevin Smith from Pillsbury Realty. We can probably go to the next slide, if you don't mind. We've presented to some of you, but I figured I'd give a little bit of a background of Procopio Companies. We're a third generation developer, vertically integrated, so we do development, construction, asset management. Our past is that we did a heavy single family construction and development. Now we're heavy into the multifamily, so what we're doing tonight is a little bit of our past and our present, so we're really excited about what we're here to present tonight. You can go to the next slide if you don't mind. And this is just a general overlay of the job. We're talking about 36 Pillsbury Road, so the current apple orchard on the north side of Woodmont Commons. And I believe if we go to the next slide, it's just part of the Woodmont Commons original PUD. So there's a bunch of sub areas that were part of this. This is going to be a mix of all of them. We did a compliance alternative previously a couple months ago, so all those steps are passed. But just want to make sure everyone has the groundwork of where we are and where this is, and then we can go from there. Next slide, please.
Yeah, good evening. Again, Eric Bednarek with VHB, landscape architect. And just one of the primary goals to the whole project was really to integrate it into the site. As you know, it's an existing apple orchard, some wetlands, open fields, and so forth. And so when you look at this, one of the primary goals to this project was to preserve as many of the apple trees as possible. And as you can see here, over 1,000 apple trees we are looking to preserve. And actually, the proposed trees were about 200, just over 260 new trees that we're proposing. So the 105 is a little bit of a mistake. Apologize. So we can progress on to the next slide.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Was this, I don't believe this is one of the areas that was required to maintain holding the trees. Is that correct, according to the POD? It was only along Gilchrist?
It's just along the lines, the road.
Correct.
That's correct.
So is this like above and beyond that you guys are trying to preserve the trees?
We're trying to preserve it as much as possible. So we've talked to the planning board and knowing that the orchard was.
They're going above and beyond what the, PUD master plan
Will
calls
they-
for.
Will they be maintaining the trees? Who's maintaining the trees once they're
Basically
staying?
one parcel of land, so everything on the land will be maintained by us.
Okay,
The ownership group.
okay.
That's sort of, to take a step back, this is gonna be a BTR, so it's built to rent. So what we're gonna present is 250 single-family homes. It's actually one piece of land that's gonna be maintained by a single owner. So everything on that land is gonna be treated like an apartment building. It's
Okay.
a horizontal apartment building, so.
You'll have a property management company, I'm assuming.
Exactly, yeah.
Those apple trees can be like a black forest if they're not maintained, so.
Yeah. And we do realize that some of them do offer, buffering to neighbors as well. And we'll get into some of the more of the details of the landscape plan, but we can take a little bit further as I'll let Keith talk about the architecture.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Keith Case. I'm a senior associate at UTIL. We're based in Boston, but we work around New England. And we're architecture and planning. We do a real mix of projects, and 60% of architecture, 40% urban planning, and form-based codes and landscape work. This is a really interesting project that we're psyched to be a part of. The approach being really a respect and interest in maintaining the best attributes of the landscape. The importance of the apple trees in the village are some really striking and important elements of the project, and really were important in formulating the approach with the kind of cluster style development and the compact nature of the development, and preserving a lot of open space, which I know Eric will get into as we go on. Next, please. So as we were looking at, our approach to a pretty sizable development of individual houses, we were looking towards the best examples, both contemporary and from history, on how to make something that feels, from day one like a community. And so, there's really great examples out there, really across the United States. The bottom right version is outside of Oklahoma City, strikes a really great balance of kind of I know it's a small picture, but the detail and variety while at the same time being something that's cohesive. And that's really what we were trying to achieve. And that's the nut to crack on really any of these projects. We also looked at historic examples like Nantucket, where there's a real uniformity in the finishes, but the everything seemed to be a weathered shake shingle, but at the same time, the variation and the subtlety comes across in the architecture. And so there's really some great examples that we were drawing from when we were looking at the selection of color, the variation, and then how many units, the variety within them, and whether or not it requires additional ornamentation, et cetera. So it's been a really fruitful process to try to figure out exactly that balance. Next, please. So looking at really just broadly a kind of prototypical exterior palette, the buildings are primarily vinyl clapboard. That just looking at the historic examples, trying to be contextual. This is northern New England. That really seems to be the grain that you experience, as you drive through the area. But then at selective uses of vinyl, of the shake shingle, you can see in the gable end, and then projecting porches, and taking some of the details you would typically see in kind of vernacular architecture, but keeping it a little contemporary. So using a rafter cut. Roof profile, a pretty streamlined roof porch column without a lot of articulation, then the 2/2 window profile, and as opposed to many divided lights, which gives a little bit of a texture, but also helps it feel kind of contemporary, because we are trying to build something that's of our time, but something that certainly has references to the past architecture of the era and the area. Next, please. So we've got 5 different housing types, and there's some variation between them, and they range between 1 bed and 3 beds. This is our 1 bed. It's a small gable structure. It's got this. It's primarily clad in clapboard, but then it has an additional shed kind of addition in a way. You can kind of read into a deep history of the form, and that gets clad with a kind of tactical use of the clapboard. Of the shake shingle there, and so you'll see with the way that the development is conceptualized, with pretty compact development, with that normally you'd have a kind of more. Each parcel will be larger. It's a pretty compact development. Most of the common space is given back into either the central area, which is left more naturalized, or the interior common space. The parcels are pretty tight together, and so we're being very tactical on how we approach the windows and fenestration on the side of the building. Being sensitive to views into each neighbor, but really the dominant grain is front to back, and so more articulation gets on the front and the back, because there's really in some ways has 2 fronts of each building. So larger windows and a little more articulation. So
What is the square footage?
I'm sorry.
The square footage?
This one I think is about 700 square feet. All right, next, please.
The 1 bedroom would be, you think?
Mhm.
Is that-
So we have a variation on this 2 bed. This is 2 bedrooms on 2 floors, with the ground floor being primarily the common spaces, the living and kitchen and dining. Again, it's a gable fronted structure with a patch of shake shingle up above. This is one version. Then we also have a version that has a projecting dormer, kind of a box window that comes out, not really a dormer, a projecting box window with the two windows that faces the street. Next, please. 2C, we're still working on this a little bit. I think it's trending more towards like a cape, more cape influences. But this is a 2-bedroom all on a single floor, so it's kind of divided in half, or 60-40, with bedrooms and kind of and main public spaces versus the kind of the bathroom and bedrooms. And it's got an entry porch and then kind of a larger expansive porch that backs up against that commonly held space.
And what are your square footages on the 2 beds?
This is more like 850, I think. Does that sound right?
I think it's much more. I think it's anywhere from like 12 to 1,500.
I was gonna say, yeah, with the 2 floors, I would imagine it's a little higher.
Just checking, it's not on the plan, so
We can provide those.
just curious. Thank you.
Okay, next, please. And there's two types of 3 beds, both with the bedrooms on the 3rd floor. This one is the only model with a garage. It's a gable end facing the street with an L and a kind of broad gable that faces its neighbors. Next, please. And then almost like a 4-square version, but a little more contemporary detailing with the, as opposed to the hipped or pyramidal roof with the gable end facing the street. Again, kind of big, generous porch facing out into the front with a more modest patio out to the back common space. And so we've been, studying the array of colors, and this is a diagram, so it's not meant to be, hyper realistic. It's just to kind of do a gut check on how we're looking at the distribution of colors. So we brought the palette that we're looking at. The bulk of the houses would be the colonial white that we're looking at. That is kind of like a backbeat that you see, in most New England villages, and then looking at bringing a little bit of the variety with some of the some common kind of muted colors, really definitely taking inspiration from the lookbook, which is really helpful to kind of frame our thinking about the clusters. And so the kind of mossy green, and then a barn red, and then. I think we have an updated slide, which we'll make sure we'll get to you, that shows some distribution with the charcoal and the kind of slate gray. So we'll be able to give you updated imagery. We actually have been kind of looking at how the distribution goes, and we've kind of dialed down the whites now, more about 30% of the colors.
Oh, the charcoal and the slate gray, the 2 in the front?
Yes.
Thank you.
How many acres is this whole, I forgot,
This portion is 94 acres.
94? Oh, I knew it was a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're trying to retain enough of the colonial white where it feels like that's the kind of the body of the project, and that's that backbeat that keeps going, and then using basically look at the views, trying to have the colors be a little more muted, and really the variety of just those 5 types. We looked at versions with more articulation or more options, and once we started looking at it between the colors and really those different the varieties, it really, we think we're getting the right mix of variety and consistency between them, and so that's just really kind of the palette that we're working with over here.
So for the most part, actually, it looks like in almost every single case, the color is consistent around the whole building. There's not like variations between the shake and the clapboard or anything like that. It's pretty much all one single color.
Yeah, that's right. That's a diagram, but yeah. And so I think the next study is looking at really whether the trim is white or the trim matches. But I think where it's a shake versus a clapboard, it's probably going to be the same color, but just a change in maybe like a trim board between them, but the same color between them too. But it's kind of the next study we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So happy to talk about the welcome building and the clubhouse, unless you want to pause there for questions.
I think the houses look good. I'm
Great.
ready to move on.
So now to talk about the clubhouse and the welcome buildings. These whereas we're maybe a little more contextual with the house and the cluster, this is really the opportunity, and kind of being consistent with, in some ways, the public buildings being a little bit more of an accent within towns, whether it gets articulated with a larger building mass or a steeple or things like that. We saw the clubhouse and the welcome building as the opportunity to really take a different, slightly different direction and be maybe a little more contemporary, just because these are kind of the public buildings and kind of deserve a different treatment. So the welcome building you see when you come up the drive up from Pillsbury Road is the first thing you see. It has actually, to speak to the maintenance aspect, the lower floor is the maintenance garage where there's can be gator trucks and things like that, but the upper floor is at least initially, the leasing office, maybe potentially meeting spaces, package room, mail room, and dog wash. And so it's a bunch of different program, and we're kind of unifying this under a kind of single roof, and these individual pieces are kind of knit together in that roof with places where there's flow through and vision through all those pieces, if you want to go into the next slide. And taking example from some modern takes on more vernacular buildings, maybe looking at a darker palette with some tighter and crisper detailing. We're looking at some roofing options. We haven't quite settled on that, but then also an opportunity to introduce some features that you don't find on the houses with more articulation, like the screens and the vertical siding. If you want to go to the next slide. So here you can see that it's kind of like a large continuous roof with a generous overhang, and then pieces where those different programs are kind of knit together underneath, almost like this umbrella, where individuals will maybe go to leasing office to pay the rent and then go and pick up their packages, and they can walk underneath this almost like an arcade at the front without columns that kind of ties the whole thing together. Next, please. Here's just a roof plan. You can see that that's our new entrance road that's coming off, and then to the right would be going to the first cluster of houses. And just some elevations of how this is starting to develop. And this is the view out to the landscape. We've focused most of the windows away from the cluster and then into the landscape, into both the wetlands and the existing orchards. And you can see the roll-up doors down below where the kind of landscaping parking happens. And then the clubhouse building is about 7,000 square feet. It's got fitness and a lounge, meeting space, game room, things like that, as well as a pool and a pool house. It's a single story, as it says, about 6,500, 7,000 square feet. And if you go to the next slide, our inspiration was really, some of the best examples that we've encountered of architects who have looked at contemporary vernacular, like Edward Larry Barnes, who's really worked all around New England, up in Vermont at Middlebury College, or out at Haystack Mountain School, or Charles Guathme, who worked on Long Island. Take some forms and ideas about cladding and express it in a way that's respectful, but also a fresh take on that.
What is the cladding material on the outside of this building? I don't think I see that represented in front of us, right?
Of which one, the Welcome Building or the
clubhouse, the one
Yeah,
we're
the
looking at
clubhouse.
on this. It
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
like real
So-
cedar shake kind of.
Well, these are just the inspiration images.
Okay.
So.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah, these are real cedar stick. The ones on the right are like oversized. Those are 14-inch shingles, so I don't think we'll be doing that. But certainly the inspiration for the the look. Something maybe more like that top left image. Next slide. So this one, the approach to the building mass, because there's a fair amount of program in here, and we're really taken with the landscape. The fact that we're trying to preserve as much as possible and stay away from the wetlands, but also retain the orchard as much as practicable. These are kind of like sliding bars that really reach out and embrace the landscape. We have these elements where the landscape can really flow through the building, whether it's that breezeway that connects from our entrance road all the way across into the public trails within this landscape. We have trails that meander all their way through the actual building, and then these bars kind of reach out into the landscape, and Eric's going to talk about really how that gets engaged. And so you can see the main body of the building with the larger bar being fitness and game room, and then the smaller one with the chimney would be meeting rooms and lounge, etc. And then there's the pool house, which is connected with the breezeway inside the fence there. Next, please. And this is just a roof plan, an architectural site plan, but Eric, we've really developed this site plan in a much more articulated way. And some elevations that show, really taking a clues from the houses that we just talked about, similar roof pitches, some similar materials, but a little bit crisper detailing, and then an opportunity to kind of play with some of the forms. So if you go to the next slide, we have these two dustpan dormers, but with oversized windows that you wind up seeing, but either looking out into the landscape or over to the entry drive and into the clusters themselves. Next, please. And here's kind of the reverse view, and as you can see, there's a tremendous amount of permeability through the building, with the landscape really has an opportunity to kind of flow right through, and it's a really important and integral part to the design of really the whole project.
And so when we look at the landscape, a few approaches here: less is more, sustainability, simplistic. as Keith mentioned quite a bit in his presentation, views or being able to see the landscape. So as we progress to the next slide, we think about the existing conditions. Of course, we have the resource areas, we have the existing orchard, we have some open lawn, meadow areas. A lot of these things really trying to capitalize on, and how can we take this community and really connect it to the environment and the existing conditions. So we'll progress further, and I'll explain that a little bit more in detail. So when we look at our proposed project, you can see the clusters that are formed here, which create these interactions where pedestrians interact with different spaces. Of course, it starts off with the gateway. As you start at the bottom of the page, or the south side of the site, entering in off Pillsbury, we have this very nice gateway. We're progressing into the site with a slope projecting up to the welcoming building about 40 feet or so. But this nice meandering road, it really capitalizes on the grade and makes it an experience as you come up into the site. And you start to experience the orchards as well. And then you have these various clusters that Keith mentioned as well, that are defined really by some nice open meadow spaces with very nice pedestrian spaces that are defined with stone dust, some chairs and seating, but nice open spaces for each of the clusters. And you're complemented with this meandering loop road that extends around the site, connecting all the clusters. And then you have these central little bright green areas. Those are where the boardwalks are that actually allow the community to interact with the resource areas as well, and be able to connect through the site, be able to walk to the clubhouse area as well, and access other amenities also. As mentioning the clubhouse, Keith mentioned the pool. We have this really nice amenity areas there where there's a multi-sport court located there, a dog play area, of course the pool and other amenities as well, playground. But as you progress down out of the site, you meander down towards Pillsbury. You're also exiting the site, and you're experiencing this dropping grade and these open views from the clubhouse as you progress south and southwest, with a stormwater feature that interacts with the paths as well. So another key element here is really bringing people onto the landscape and interacting with it, even though we're looking at stormwater and how we can also interact pedestrians with those features as well. Let's progress to the next slide. Again, we talked about the existing trees, and again, creating that interaction with the community, with the existing environment. And this shows the 263 proposed trees that we have, complementing the loop road, complementing the various clusters, bringing the scale down a little bit where we do have the structures located, but also defining views where we can as well. And we'll get into some of the species as we progress forward. It's just some character images here. Really nice image of what we're really trying to portray here is up on the upper left. These nice open meadows defined with nice features such as fences, whether it's located around the pool, around the dog run area, taking materials that really complement this kind of rustic New Hampshire character, and utilizing different plants that really reinforce that. And from the sustainability approach, really thinking about nice native grasses, whether it's fescues or other open wild meadow type of grasses, can really complement these open spaces that we're trying to really preserve. Next slide. And so around the clubhouse, again, the approach less is more. We're not looking to make this resort style type clubhouse. This is introducing some nice simple lines of whether it's inkberry, lilacs, some nice perennial, whether it's echinacea, rudbeckia. Also keep in mind, just from a simple approach, deer resistant plants. That will be a very important part to this as well. But very simple lines, things in long rows, ground covers, very simple to the eye. And I think when you think about this development at the end, everything is very easy to the eye. Open meadows, your eye, and as again, Keith mentioned about views. We have about 70 feet change in grade from the front to the back. And so that really focuses and creates some really interesting views as you look to the south and from the back of the site and from the clubhouse. So we want to keep everything simple. We don't want to take away from those views. Go to the next slide. So again, some of the amenities that we're providing here, the multi-purpose court, which would be a tennis court, intermingled with 2 pickleball courts. Next slide. playground areas, being able to meet the needs of the community, making it really trying to service all users of this community. So whether it's 2 to 5-year-olds, 5 to 12-year-olds, providing an opportunity for them to be able to, for parents to bring their children and experience the landscape as well.
That's just an example picture, right?
Just an example, yeah, absolutely. That will specifically also kind of complement the overall character of the site as well. Again, the pool area, again, really taking advantage of the views, looking at paving materials. Right now, we're just kind of exploring options, but overall, a material that will have earth tones to it, complement the architecture of what Keith and Util are doing, whether it is potentially a pea gravel type of pool deck or stamped concrete, but really kind of complement the whole character of the project and also the region as well. Same thing with vertical elements like your pool barrier. These are important. We have to meet the code of pool requirements, but we also want to make sure that fits into the character of the site, complement the architecture. The fence is an extension of the architecture as well, coming off the pool house, but also take advantage of the views. Again, thinking about people in chase lounge chairs when they're lying down and they look up, we want them to be able to look through these barriers and out to the view and really capitalize on that as well. Same thing with the dog run area, looking at different fence material options. This is a really nice image on the bottom right where you see some of those fescue grasses. That kind of complements the character of what we're trying to achieve. Of course, the top picture as well, where you have the open meadows. And utilizing fescues and wildflowers, that also minimizes the maintenance. We also want to make sure we really think about that and create a sustainable site. As we look at signage, of course, our main gateway down on the bottom right, we're still working through what the character of that, what that might look like, but again, keeping it very simple. Simple lines, simple materials, native materials, complementing, again, pulling the architecture that Util's working on, bring that out into our wayfinding signage with wood and complementary metals, but very simple, clean, and strong. And then you look at the representative wayfinding signage that would be located throughout the site, whether it's at the clubhouse, the welcoming center, also some wayfinding path signage as well on the top right that are allowed to direct members of the community to be able to find their way throughout the site. Lighting, of course, dark sky compliant, being able to really keep this as if you want to say, a low-key type of feel to it. On that plan, I know it might be a little bit difficult to see, but you can see there's some yellow dots that progress around the site, really focusing on the main gateway with very minimalistic type of lighting, but be able to find your way, announce the entrance, and then focusing on the different intersections where the clusters are to light those predominant main intersections for people to find their way around. And different at the clubhouse and the welcoming center, there'd be some low-level pedestrian scale lighting there. Again, everything dark sky, very thoughtful, very soft color lights. Again, people will be looking up into the site, so we want to make sure that it looks very attractive and soft, and also complementary or very respectful to the neighbors as well. Different type of tree species, again, following off of your zoning requirements, really looking at what will do well here, what complements that character, whether it is sugar maples, tupelos, different types of evergreens, again, want to be sensitive to deer resistant, putting dashes of color, whether it is serviceberry, redbuds, that really complement kind of that nature, bringing wildlife in with different types of berries, and so forth. And also that you can see in here, which is nice, you have the different mixtures of the seasons to really create an attraction with the trees as well.
Purple lilac there.
That's actually redbud, right?
That's what?
Yeah.
Redbud?
Oh, I don't know. Is it never?
The one to the top right, bottom right? Yeah, eastern redbud?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no, I was gonna. Right? It's not. No, that's not.
Go to there, yeah.
Lilac there.
And then we do have our lilacs on the top right there,
Oh,
top
okay.
left, I'm sorry. But again, these are just some of the various different types of plants we will consider.
This is listed on the landscaping plan. Lilac is there.
Okay, now I see. Well, now I see the. I guess.
Absolutely.
Stem.
Which is gonna prevail?
picture or what's listed on your drawings?
Well, these are representative of what's in the drawings, and we haven't gotten to the very specifics of like what's where exactly. But this is kind of our selected plant palette of what we'll consider. And depending on how things get laid out specifically, whether it's at the main entrance, the clubhouse, or the welcoming center, again, very simplistic approach. Do less is more. So utilizing one species, nice clean lines, but also being able to introduce colors so it will last from the spring throughout the fall. That'll be key. But really just complementary colors, some ornamental native grasses mixed in there just to create the different textures as well. And of course, all throughout the winter as well. So whether it is inkberry gets nestled in there to bring some winter interest, nestled in with some ornamental grasses where you get the nice kind of beige color in the winter, where you keep them up throughout the winter, creates a nice contrast with the evergreens. So we'll be looking at that as well.
Your picture shows 12. You've got 12 pictures of different things.
Correct.
On the sheet, there's another listing for the shrubs. There's only 2 that I see that are the same.
Okay.
So which is going to prevail?
It's, I mean, when we look at the design, so what you might see in the list, and maybe if we didn't have a picture here, we will be considering between the images and what's in the list as well. So you might see red twig dogwood in there as well. That could also be introduced into the plant palette. Native really creates some nice winter interest with the red twigs as well. So I think what you see in the suggested plant list and then what's here, it certainly will consider what's in both. And if there's something that you disagree with.
The list on here includes Virginia rosa, knock rose, gray dogwood, red sprite, winterberry, something Clethera hummingbird, inkberry, Virginia creeper, Rolo sumac, witch hazel, ace-scented fern, Pennsylvania sedge, and New England aster. New England aster is on your list of pictures, and I think that the I forget, but there's another one that's on there. Virginia rose thing. Well, anyway.
Knockout roses, maybe.
Just want to see about, there isn't any hydrangea listed there.
Correct, yeah, we did add this, actually, we just added this in the other day. It's just another plant that we thought might complement the pool area as well. We know that's actually not deer resistant, so that would be very selective on how we use that, be specifically in the pool area. But hydrangeas are so durable in New England, and they offer such a beautiful accent to the landscape, so we use dashes of that. But I think when you look at the pictures and then look at the suggested plant list, there will be this combination, but we want to keep it simple. We only may use maybe 5 to 8 plants in that list. Rather than, we don't want this to look like a mishmash of all these different plants. Very simple lines, very clean, but this just gives you a taste of what we're going to consider. And if there's something you don't like, we'd be more than happy to listen.
No, just what the lady next to me was mentioning, lilac. Miss Kim isn't on that list, but there is a picture of it.
Yeah, I apologize, we didn't
Right.
add them all in there.
It appears that you guys have done some homework. You said that you had reviewed the lookbook. That's self-evident in your design plan. I see a lot of the things we typically are asking our applicants for, from pitched roofs, asphalt shingles, earth tone colors. I like a lot of the architecture. You have capes and ranches and these like barn dominium looking type designs in there that I think look really great in a New England setting, especially in an orchard town, right? It almost looks like you're on like a farm resort or something. So good job with the design.
Yeah, well done. Looks like a little slice of old New England,
I'd like to ask a question if I may, Chris.
Sure.
I just wondered, a couple of these clusters are going to be backing up against Hovey Road, where we've got some old-time residents across the street. Could you speak a bit to what they're likely to be looking at?
Yeah, certainly. So we do have, if we want to kind of scroll back to maybe that plan that shows the preserved trees. So yeah, we do have some orchard that's being preserved, but we're also adding some additional evergreens along with those key buffers. And I apologize, I didn't mention this before. We have some evergreens located on the south edge of the site where it's looking down towards Pillsbury. There's some evergreens there and additional plants. And then over to the right, and the far right where it protrudes out, there's some evergreens there as well, especially around the stormwater feature where we are removing some plant material.
So there's going to be some shrubbery and trees and things.
Yeah, and specifically
break
a little
up
bit
the
more
line a
taller
bit.
evergreens that we'll be able to fill
Yeah.
in, absolutely.
It's also worth noting, for a lot of the architectural houses, the clusters are in the middle, so that's a common cluster area, but there's actually two fronts to these houses. If you don't mind going to like slide 6 or 7, back to the architecturals. Should be all the way at the beginning, just.
Yeah.
Sorry to make you click all the way through them.
That's okay. Keep going.
Yeah, please, to the, and stop, next slide to the right, please. So this is gonna be a majority of our houses, so you can see that there's a porch on the front and the back, so there's never, Hovey Road isn't gonna be looking at the backs of houses, it's gonna look like, make it look like they're looking at the fronts of houses, but, because these houses technically have like 2
Yeah.
fronts.
Oh, okay, that's kind of the point you were
thank you.
making earlier.
Yeah. And Eric alluded to it, where we have clusters and green space and a common area where we want to pull the residents in, but we don't ever want to have the residents. We've talked to the Kit Lane residents. We obviously have Hovey Road, and we have a lot of butters around us. We never want to have them feel like they're looking at the backs of houses, because that's not great for the community.
So is there no access point to Hovey Road?
No.
Was there a reason for that?
Not particularly. We want to keep everything on Pillsbury,
Hmm.
and that's where our traffic study is built out of, and two entrances on Pillsbury, and that's just how we've gone forward.
Gotcha. I have another, I guess, design question for you. Looks like there were some things that were added, but yet our plans are not added to include them, such as around the clubhouse area with the playground, the dog park moving, and now the pickleball courts. They're not reflected on your plans that we have in front of us.
Or the site plan submission?
Yeah. So like page 9 on the site plans doesn't show the pickleball courts, the playground, or the dog park moving.
Yeah, this design is, especially in that area,
Just want to make sure that you catch that before you finally go through planning board.
100%. And a lot of those moves, just to be transparent, are from Conscom. We're going through, there was some stuff that were in the buffer zone, so we're trying our best to get out of the buffer zone based on their comments, and that's why
Gotcha.
you're seeing a couple shifts, because we met with them 2 or 3 weeks ago, so this design is
Okay.
live as we're going through it in the
Okay.
Heritage Commission meeting.
Yeah, and I noticed there was some parking that had moved around, so just want to make sure that you catch that on your drawings before you do your full submission, so
Yeah,
that
I
you don't
appreciate
have
that.
one and not the other by accident.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, design-wise, I mean, it looks like you guys still have quite a bit of work to do, right? Like there's, well, actually, I'm sorry. I forgot there's another whole set of plans in here. Okay, so you do have lighting plan, your landscape, the landscape plan, is that, so in talking about what you're actually planting, it sounds like that's kind of still in flux, you're not sure exactly which things you're planting. So is there a landscape plan that kind of lays out where everything's gonna be, more or less, or is that still to come?
Yeah, what we wanted to do is just be able to show you what we're suggesting for plant material, as I mentioned, and see if you had any issues with anything that we're proposing, and then be able to progress forward and then start to, lay it out appropriately
Sure.
in more detail.
Are all of the lighting, I see the representative roadway light fixtures that you have in there. Is that pretty much gonna be the lighting throughout the entire property? That kind of older farmhouse looking
Yeah, that's the
bell
intent.
fixture?
So based on talking to the abutters and the residents, they really don't want this to look like a Christmas tree.
Yep.
And that's kind of the feedback we've got from the planning board as well. So that was our compliance alternative that we got passed a couple months ago, was actually reducing the lighting based on the PUD regulations. So we're gonna have them at intersections, we'll have them at the public buildings, the welcome building, and the amenity building. And since there's only 25 of them, our intent would be to use that nice wood light fixture that we had there, which we think fits the neighborhood pretty well.
Yep. Okay. Any further questions or comments from commission members?
Quick question, I guess.
Sure.
From Chair and Vice Chair, I don't know if I can ask this as this is a site plan question about something,
I mean,
since this isn't a
you
heritage
can,
question.
you can ask.
Okay.
The question is whether or not we can actually provide any recommendation based on
Sounds
the
good.
answer.
As I know that they have a new water tower being built, I'm wondering if there's access to that from this property, or if the development is still planning on using the access from from Gordon for maintenance of that water tower or not.
So there's an open easement on the property for that water tower through Pennachuck, so that easement needs to stay in place. We're not allowed to put any structures or trees on it. So that will be an open access way for.
Is it a dirt or roadway access to it?
It's the way they left it now.
Okay.
But we may put grass or some sort of, low ground cover, but we're not authorized to put bushes or trees or structures on there. So that's all of our plans, have that coming down the west side of our property.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
Oh, the houses look great.
Agreed? Okay. Yes, sir. Please.
Kevin Smith, representing Pillsbury Realty in Woodmont. I appreciate your comments. We're really happy with these plans, especially when you compare it to what was originally approved for this area, which was basically just single-family homes all in a line. This is so much more creative with this land. Art, to your point, it really brings a New England feel to it. It preserves so much more open space than what would have otherwise been preserved there, preserves a number of the apple trees, and where it's one owner owning the whole plot, it's highly controlled as well. And so I'm happy to hear the feedback from the Heritage Commission, because we feel just as happy and excited with how Procopio is proceeding with this particular plan. So just wanted to add that.
I agree. Thank you, Kevin.
It reminds me of there's a mixed-use development plan just between like the Norwell, Plymouth, Hanover area that's like mixed within the trees and the mountainous feel of the road, and I think this will really mix well with the landscape, that's for sure.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to note, in the Woodmont PUD master plan, it does call for a row of apple trees along Hubby Road. And also, if, apple trees have a finite lifetime. So the only replacement is replacement in kind. That would be like with a flowering apple. So we still have apple blossoms, at least with a flowering apple, you don't have the fruit to worry about, and the annual upkeep of it also.
Yep.
It's happened along, Gilchrist Road. There's been some trees that have died there, and will be replacing them.
Yeah, we consider something like a spring snow crab apple that doesn't actually get the fruit, but has the beautiful blossoms.
Yeah.
Something like that could be a
Usually
consideration.
look at the blossoms all out together,
Yeah,
and the smell,
absolutely.
especially with the dandelions when they're.
Okay, our recommendation to the planning board will be to accept the submission as it is. Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks for the touchy-feely stuff.
It's kind of what we're here for.
Yeah, sometimes if you touch it, you get them.
Have a good night, everybody. All right, members of the board, we'll move on to other business, which we have a discussion regarding 2 Litchfield Road. We had recently done, and Mr. Ellis, I will turn this over to you momentarily. We had recently done a site inspection, or attempted to do a site inspection, where we got some good feedback from Mr. Codner. And who else joined?
I went with Nick,
David, you went with
and
Nick.
I wrote my own independent, but it was essentially the same as Nick's.
Okay.
In summary, he said the building from the outside looks structurally good. There's no sort of major structural things apparent from the outside. The roof's in good condition. The north side is in good condition. It needs painting above the ground floor. It looks like whoever did the painting did the ground floor and ceased, because it is peeling badly on the west, south, and east sides. The eaves are in need of scraping and repainting. The chimney needs repointing, and there were a couple of spots around the window frame sills where you're starting to get a bit of rot coming in, but Nick said that basically all they need to do is they scrape it down and use an epoxy paint to seal it. So it's nothing serious there. Now obviously you don't do repointing and painting while there's a risk of frost, so none of this needs to happen for the next month or two. My recommendation would be that because we've had that inspection, we need to make it available promptly to the owner, so he knows what the inspection was. I would suggest that what we do is put Nick's statement on town letterhead, or have the town put it on town letterhead, and send him a copy with recommendations. And I think the recommendations were repaint the 3 sides and the eaves, repoint the chimney. That's as far as the exterior inspection.
Mr.
Now,
Chair.
the secondary point is we were denied access to the interior. Laura, his lawyer, has been in touch with the town lawyer. I don't know what the basis was for preventing us inspecting the inside. I was hoping that we might have heard back by now, but I believe that if we are going to stick to the easement and have these inspections, we should press the town lawyer to press the owner on our behalf to allow access to the inside.
No,
We
it's
have
already-
no way of knowing what's in there unless we can see it.
It's already been okayed for demo. So it's-
Sorry?
Well,
It's already been
No,
okayed for demo.
that's just the barn.
The barn was.
Only the barn was okayed for demo.
Oh, right, what else are we,
The
Oh, the
rest of the
house.
building, the house itself.
In the house itself.
I had no idea was on any, whatever I'm trying to think of, that it was going to be demoed, the house? Or
No,
No,
We just,
the,
part of the easement
the
says
his-
that we can do an
the
annual
Historic
inspection.
District Commission is empowered under the easement to have an annual inspection of the property, which probably, had it been done, would have preserved the barn. But we've never had the annual inspections, and we decided that it would be a good idea to at least have one now and repeat every year, and that this year's we would attempt to establish what the condition of the property is so that we can prevent further deterioration.
is that a family inside the house? I'm so used
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it was used, before the present owner, it was used by the Londonderry Times, the newspaper office.
Yep, but
I think the
When it
Londonderry
went to the present
Democrats
owner,
have been in there
Yes.
recently.
it was, for a time, it was rented out to the, or leased out to the Democratic Party.
Yes.
oh, yeah.
Essentially office use, that
Yep.
kind of thing. And I believe that most recently, what's the guy's name that was, he,
There's a family that's living there right now.
yeah,
That's
it
right,
was,
but-
it has been used recently as residential.
Yes.
Right, because I was there whatever time, months ago, and, because we used to be able to demo, we were able to look inside the places, and I wanted to go in and look, and he had put a padlock on it, which, because he said people were stopping and going in, and Kirsten, I told Kirsten that, she said he had no authority to do that.
You don't. The Historic District Commission has authority to request at 7 days' notice to go in and look.
Yeah, this is the agreement that was
Yeah.
signed
I
between
walked,
the town and,
I have been in the main house when the Democratic Party had their open house. I went up because it seemed like a good opportunity to see what was in there. And they showed us around the ground floor, mostly at the east end of it. So I've got some idea what the condition was like in 2019. There were no real major problems.
I know that the owner in the past has hired a painter to do the exterior, and the wood has just been soaking in the paint. And that's why your comments about the exterior paint are there. It soaks in the paint. The wood is so old, it's just soaking it in. So it's hard to paint it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't,
Certainly, what we saw of that, the wood siding, I mean, you'd have to remove, the old paint is flaked badly. It needs to be scraped down and repainted properly.
And I
But
could,
you're gonna lose the house completely if you don't do something like that.
This
It'll
is
just
gonna be-
continue to deteriorate.
this is gonna be some protection,
house is beautiful.
painting, coating of some type on there.
Yeah, right. If there's no protective coating, the wood is just gonna rut.
Yeah. But,
There
as I
was-
say, I believe that we have a duty to let the owner know or have the report of
Yes.
the inspection, and we should do that promptly.
Agreed.
I mean, I'd be willing to help draft something up and send it email to you, and then maybe I suspect it probably ought to come from someone like the town manager.
Yeah, that would be the
Yeah, but I
most
mean,
appropriate way.
I can certainly draft up a suggested wording that uses Nick's report.
Yeah, maybe,
That would be,
maybe Kelly, in her capacity as assistant town manager, can work with Kim,
Yeah,
who will, because we'll have a town manager effective July,
yeah, I was gonna say.
Uh,
he's not
June.
around.
June
June.
1st.
Okay.
yeah, June, I was told,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think we should leave it until June before we get back to Mr.
No,
Flyer.
we should
Yeah.
do it.
I mean, it's a relatively
Communication.
straightforward thing. It's repeat Nick's inspection report.
Yeah.
And I recommend add the recommendation that these three sides and the eaves need painting and the chimney should be repointed. I don't think either of those are particularly controversial.
now this is the house.
Are those
Yeah,
Now,
this
why is this coming up to us, or why are we talking about it?
because of the easement? It's a historical property.
Right, oh, that I already knew, but I didn't know.
because it's
oh,
under our purview for
Oh, that I know,
inspections
right,
of it.
yeah, but I didn't know.
But as I say, the other thing is, I think we have to gain access to the inside somehow. And we need to hear from the town's lawyer
Yeah, I agree.
why they are denying that
Yeah, we
and
should,
what we can do to gain access.
at a minimum, talk to the town attorney, or direct staff to talk to the town attorney and find out what our options are for enforcement, right? If the easement states that we need an annual inspection, then we have to be allowed to do it, whether it's, we gave the 7 days notice, correct?
Oh, yes, see, we actually extended it, we gave them about 3 weeks, because there wasn't an urgency to rush in there.
Right. As
I
long
mean,
as
there's
we
no
give them
reason we shouldn't
time.
accommodate the owner as much as we reasonably can.
Right,
But on the other hand, we should comply with the easement.
agreed. Yeah, so I would say, I think you're right on, Mr. Ellis, with a letter to direct town staff to send some type of notice on letterhead stating, these are the conditions of the house that were found during the latest inspection. Here are the recommendations to correct the issues. And then beyond that, we'll have to have some kind of discussion with town council about what we can do to get the
Okay.
remainder of the inspection.
Well, I will tentatively suggest that I go home, I'll write up some words that I think should be used. I'll forward them to you, John, and I would appreciate it then, maybe at least send them to this committee or commission and have you acknowledge by email that, yeah, you don't have any major disagreements with it or anything like that. And then we'll pass it on to the town manager or town
And
staff.
a copy to Kristen.
Yeah, I would suggest going through town staff first before going to us,
Yeah.
as it
I
would be
was-
technically a town document. if
I
we
was just
pass
gonna
it through
say-
By email.
The other thing is, if we copy too many people, that means it's a meeting.
Meeting law violation.
And now
Oh.
it's 91A and all that stuff,
Well, if
so,
it- if it-
Yeah.
If it comes from staff, it's all right.
right.
And I think
But
if,
we shouldn't be,
How about,
emailing,
how about you
communicating
just
with
send
each-
it to me? and
Yeah,
Kelly?
what I was trying to guard against was I don't want my words to be the only response.
Right.
I would rather have concurrence
You
somehow.
can send it through Kristen, and Kristen can distribute it, and that doesn't constitute a meeting
Okay.
under 91.
Yeah.
Right.
And then,
So-
I think you guys also have a copy of Nick's inspection report, so you can corroborate.
I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
I
His
haven't
was
been-
just, it was an email, it was a simple email like mine. That
Okay,
But I can talk to Nick, too.
I can copy you on that.
that would be perfect.
One other thing,
That way
Mr.
we're
Chair,
covered.
on the exterior that's already been identified, should we, I think that needs to be corrected this year, this season. Okay, so I think we probably should put a done by date.
Timeline, sure.
I would suggest completed by the end of September, which is when, after that, it's gonna be too frosty and the stuff
was
ain't gonna work.
And that's a pretty generous window.
I was just
think.
gonna say,
Yeah.
that gives them plenty of time to comply.
plenty of time.
Yeah, okay.
They can't do that within that time, they have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, let's try to cool it a little. It doesn't, we aren't gonna get anywhere if this gets too antagonistic.
No,
Right.
I think that's more than fine. In terms of the interior inspection, you know, this has been bouncing around for over a month now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Um,
don't know why or what reason Laura found to not allow it.
Yeah, and we're assuming that this has now gone to the town's attorney, or?
So, well,
That's
I don't
what-
wanna make that assumption. I'd rather, from our perspective, I can send an email also. I'll send an email to you, Kristen, and suggest that we at least get feedback from town council about next steps for enforcement in order to be sure that we get an inspection at some
by
point.
council, you mean the town attorney?
I
Correct.
believe actually we do know that it went, because when I went to do the
Thank you.
exterior, Nick Codner was the one that informed me, and he said that it had, Laura and the town's attorney were discussing it, and that was why we were not allowed in.
Okay.
So maybe your note to Kristen could say, we understand through the building inspector that this has been to the town attorney, now we need an outcome and a direction.
I mean, I would assume, if they're using it as a residence at this point, I would assume that's probably part of the reason that they denied, is because. it's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
somebody's
it might
home,
be a
but-
perfectly innocent, hey, we can't get hold of the resident, or we can't arrange it, and he doesn't want you crawling around his bedroom or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah,
Or maybe some ground rules, since it's
Yeah,
someone's personal effects and everything.
Right.
yeah, I mean, basically what we wanted to do was to take a look at, down in the cellar at the structure and make sure there's no rot getting in, look at the frames of the windows. There are some specific things called out in the easement that we have to inspect, like the crown moulding and stuff like that, and
How, besides being under our purview, how is this building zoned? Is this a residential building?
C3
C3, yeah.
was done by the town council over the objection of the planning board. It was, spot zoning.
All right,
I was gonna say,
what
it has
is
to
the
be, it's
C3?
commercial.
C3 is light
Light
commercial with
commercial.
office use.
You can live in a
That's-
light commercial building?
You can, because there's a higher hierarchy with residential, commercial, industrial. You can live in any one of them, the residential use, even though it's zoned, let's say commercial.
yeah. It has got some
Can't go the other way, huh?
specific
Can't go the other
zoning
way.
restrictions. It's not allowed to be used for retail, whereas the commercial, I think, normally does.
Yeah, there's no retail involved, even though I think there's been an attempt at one time for, I think, a bank, potential bank, which,
Yeah, but that was
Planning
turned down
board
because it was a
found on-
retail. It's also, there is an exclusion there, it's not allowed to be used as a daycare or anything where you're likely to have young children running around because of the potential for damage, I guess.
yeah, because that was negotiated, I know, by our attorney at that time, which I think was Barton here. And then their attorney, which was actually the newspaper. The newspaper, Londonderry Times purchased the property. I think their corporate entity was Kroll's Corner,
Yeah.
LLC.
Yeah, if you go into the zoning regulations, I know in the appendix at the end, I think there's 5 specific paragraphs that deal with that property in the appendices. 2006 dash something.
Yes, yeah, because that'll all be in the
Yeah.
easement.
It's in the town zoning ordinance. I've got a copy at home.
All right,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
The other thing I think is, in terms of the request for an interior inspection, we don't just want it to be like it was when Jim and I went through. No, we want the building inspector involved in that inspection. Because and this was from Mr. Flyer talking to Jim Butler and I, there were some issues with the foundation in that building, okay? There was, Mr. Flyer actually said the issue with the siding was there was so much water coming into that building in terms of the basement.
Wicked up
It
through
was
the-
wicking up
yeah.
the sides of the building. And I think we need to have, beyond Mr. Ellis, a building inspector look at the interior too.
Sure.
Oh, yes, I
think-
Nick, you need at least Nick Codner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the easement, I believe the Historic District Commission is empowered to have a real licensed building inspector paid for by the owner do the inspection on your behalf.
Yes.
So you could identify someone that will do it, and they would be making their report to you, but the owner pays for it.
The previous town manager said no to that whole thing. Okay, rightly or wrongly, that's why we ended up with as much expertise as Jim Butler has and my total lack, okay?
Oh.
That's why we ended
Well,
up
that's
going
not
into
the wording of the
building.
easement.
I'm just telling you, that's the wall we hit that
Yeah.
time, so, I guess maybe we need clarification on that too, but.
I would say Nick Codner's a great place to start. He can give us a report
Nick
from a
is
professional
good and
perspective.
competent. I
Right.
mean, the only, I know at the meeting when we were talking about the barn, I brought up that he wasn't licensed. That doesn't mean he's not competent.
Right.
That just happened to be a way of buying some time.
I think that based on Nick's report, if there are any serious concerns that could lead to safety problems,
Yeah.
then perhaps at that point we could say, okay, we need to have a licensed, like, architectural engineer or something go and take
Yeah.
a look. But with Nick,
But certainly an
things are
initial
true.
inside inspection I'd feel
Right.
very comfortable with Nick making an inside inspection. I'd love to walk round with him. And just saying, this needs fixing, this doesn't need fixing. And in particular, I mean, to an extent, you can identify things like if something, it's been what, 25 years since I think the easement was established, thereabouts. The easement was 2006. So
like
it's about 20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
But if something has deteriorated, obviously, in 20 years, like the painting on the outside,
Yeah, paint can change even in a year.
right,
Well, particularly if it's
yeah.
moisture is waking up in the building, you
But
can't
the
paint
easement,
without
the
surface.
easement says the condition that it was in 2006 should be maintained.
Although, we also have the owner who
We
was
don't
there
have,
before.
we don't have a full documentation of that, no.
No, the board was never
We did
doing
have on the
inspections
barn,
when the easement was put into place, so.
we did have on the barn, but you can, certainly you can assess whether something has just deteriorated in the last 5-10 years.
Okay.
Last thing, then I'll shut up. Mr. Chair. The barn is still
believe
up.
it.
You don't believe it, thank you. The barn is still up, right?
Yeah,
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is,
I
I know there was a
personally,
discussion about the safety hazard, which evidently it wasn't that pressing.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there was, and maybe David knows, was there an interest in getting anything out of that barn in terms of wood or anything else?
I mean, 15 years I've been on the demo delay, and I've always gotten inside it. And then Kirsten says, well, because I said it's locked, and she said, well, he shouldn't have done that. And then she says something like, you were there? She said, you don't have to, or you shouldn't have to go inside. And I thought, that's like half the reason, whether I okay it or something, is to see
Because
what's inside.
as long as the
but-
owner is given, the Historical Society and, even Heritage Commission could go in and look at a building that's gonna be, the demo delay committee. And, once you have the owner's permission, you can go in and look.
Yeah, the man that lives in the house put the lock on, because I was there back when it was voting time, because there were signs on there. And he said, well, I put a lock on it because people were just stopping and wanting to go in and look. So he put the lock on. That's when Kirsten said that wasn't right for him to do that. But then nothing's been done since, so.
Well, but as I understand, right now, what's supposed to happen is that barn is supposed to get knocked down. And then I also understood that there was an offer made, I think at a town council meeting, Ted, maybe, to allow the Historical Society to come in if there was any wood that you wanted out of the building, for want of a better word.
I don't remember that in any of our meetings
That's-
in the past 6 months.
yeah, you really can't make use of that easily.
Well, that's why I wanted to get inside. That's, there's a lot to inside that maybe historical could have used or something, but they had it locked, and I couldn't, Kirsten.
I mean,
said,
it's sad about the barn. It's, as far as I know, I think it's the only English barn in town.
Well,
But
I'm
The decision has been made.
I'm buying the story that it's a hazard now, because that was
yeah,
what was
that's
approved.
the
Let's
decision.
get
That
it
is
down.
the decision.
Right.
There was
Let's
a
not
structural
rehash it.
engineering report on
Yes.
it, and basically said, it's, dangerous.
That's sort of a town council issue, Ted, okay?
I know,
It's a hazard
I-
now.
it is now, yes. So,
So
I don't know why it's being held up then at demolition commission. So
What was
if it's
that?
been approved here and it's been designated that it's a hazard based on the structural report, then it should just be approved from demolition commission, right?
We did.
I was being told by the owner that he's being held up for whatever reason, one way or the other.
You were there, right? You were.
Yes, I think the situation is there that we didn't need to give them a delay because then it was declared that it should really be taken down.
Okay,
Because it's a hazard.
okay.
So, whatever after that.
Because
You
it came along later, that 6 Wiley Hill barn, they were looking for a demolition delay for that. But then it turned out the building inspector inspected it and said it was such bad condition that it's posed a hazard and that we wouldn't be involved in that. So we
Okay.
didn't look at it or do anything. It was just, it's still standing.
Yeah, yeah.
but it's been declared
That's at
such
the
that
corner of Wiley Hill and
Yeah.
West Road.
West Road, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Then, I mean, there shouldn't really be an issue with the owner taking down the barn then.
Right,
No.
we submitted the letter, right? You did the letter for the, who was it at the town hall?
Oh, yeah, for the,
Yeah, for the, that we okayed it. and
yeah,
yes,
for
all
Litchfield,
done.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, so it's up to Fly or whatever. I'm assuming it would have gotten contact from the town and everything.
You would assume that the town would have contacted his attorney and so
That's
forth.
what I'm assuming. It was-
One would assume.
That's where we left it, I guess. is-
Who knows?
Okay.
All right.
So,
Anything else, Mr. Chair?
No, sir. In the interest of keeping this meeting as short as possible.
Old
what's that?
business.
Sure.
I think by the next meeting that we have, the Historical Society will have completed a list of like 6 or 7 or 8 things that was approved by this commission about 3 years ago. So we got a lot of them done right away, but we've been hanging around trying to find somebody to do the electrical work. And we got some electrical work repaired. We need to have a little bit more run. And now I'm supposed to have somebody there April 3rd to finish that up for us. And then it'll be just a case of the security people running some wires themselves.
Okay.
So that should take care. We took down some trees, we painted, we fixed up doors. I forget what else we did. There was a bunch of things that I had to get permission to do. Just, I don't think electrical work is conducive to good health, because I've had 4 electricians before I could get one.
Was there any further discussion about making the Historical Society an actual town committee?
Not that I know of.
Because I know that at least our former town manager was supposed to have a meeting regarding that at one point, but I guess that must have fallen to the wayside with some busy items.
By me, I'm just treasurer.
You're just treasurer, okay.
Well, I've been along for 30 years. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know Linda Green was supposed to have a meeting
Oh,
with him to try and make an actual town committee, because if it actually becomes a town committee, potentially the town council could actually contribute money within a budget at some point.
Yeah.
If it actually becomes a town committee compared to a separate entity.
Right. We wouldn't have a problem with that.
Right.
But I'm only the treasurer,
Of course.
becoming a town committee.
so Ted, historically, the town has always contributed in kind or with, money appropriated
Right.
through a, warrant article. Because we appropriated money to have, the Reverend Morrison's house,
yeah.
just down Gilchrist, taken, sorry,
You're good. Go ahead.
my hands flourish all the time. Have it taken down piece by piece and then cataloged, and that's stored
Yes.
right behind the Historical Society property.
Well, and I think the other piece of making an actual town committee is, I know many of your members are maybe aging out, would be a nice way of saying it,
Yeah.
and trying to actually attract new people to the committee, of actually making it a town committee, then
Yeah.
we can help you advertise to be
Right.
on the committee. I think
Especially a
was part
committee
of
with a
it.
budget.
Exactly.
David, since you brought it up, if you'd like to submit a report about what's happened with those items you were talking about, we
okay.
could put it as other business in the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can direct our acting town manager to strike with that conversation with Linda Green and your other committee members again.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.